My name is Emma, and for most of my life, I believed that if you worked hard and treated people well, everything would turn out all right. I'd spent over a decade building a stable career in financial analysis, carefully climbing up the ranks. I lived in a modest but comfortable two-bedroom condo in Chicago, which I'd saved for over the years. Life felt stable, and for a while, I thought I had everything I needed. But there was one thing missing. I'd always hoped to share my life with someone who truly understood and appreciated me. I wanted a partner, someone who respected my independence and ambitions. So when I met Tom, I thought I finally found that. Tom was charming and intelligent, and we connected on so many levels. We shared the same values, or so I thought, and he seemed to genuinely respect my independence. I've been so careful in choosing who I let into my life, and Tom felt like a safe bet. I truly believed he'd be different from other men who felt threatened by my independence. After dating for a while, Tom introduced me to his family. His mother, Alice, was a retired school principal. She was 65 but looked younger, with a sharp gaze that seemed to cut through the air around her. Alice was one of those people who walked into a room and instantly took control of it. From what Tom had told me, she'd been a single mother most of his life and was fiercely proud of him. When I met her, I tried my best to make a good impression, and for a brief moment I thought I had. She was polite, but there was a certain edge to her that made me feel like I was being analyzed with every word I said. Tom and I got engaged within a year. I was thrilled, thinking this was the start of a new chapter. I remember feeling incredibly lucky that I found a man who supported my career and seemed to appreciate the life I'd built on my own. But as the wedding day approached, Alice became more present in our lives. She'd offer unsolicited advice on everything from the wedding colors to the guest list, often implying that her way of doing things was simply better. Tom would shrug it off, saying it was just her personality, but something about her constant interference gnawed at me. On our wedding day, as I walked down the aisle, I caught Alice's eyes watching me. There was something unsettling in her expression, a sort of critical judgment I couldn't shake, but I brushed it off, telling myself I was just nervous. After all, this was the happiest day of my life, right? After we got married, Tom and I decided to move into my condo temporarily, planning to buy a larger home together. It felt exciting to have a shared dream. But that's when Alice started showing up, often without notice. She'd comment on my choice of decor, my cooking, or even the layout of the condo. At first, I brushed it off, trying to keep the peace. Maybe she was just trying to help, I told myself. One evening, Tom and I were having dinner when Alice showed up with a bottle of wine and a strange suggestion. "Why don't you two move into a house closer to me?" she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "That way, I can help out more, especially once the grandkids come along." I felt uneasy, but Tom seemed to like the idea. He assured me it was just temporary, that it would be nice to have some help nearby, and I reluctantly agreed to start looking at homes in her neighborhood. We found a beautiful, spacious house that was, admittedly, closer to Alice's than I would have liked. But Tom was thrilled, so I told myself it would be worth it. We moved in, and for a while, things seemed all right. But then Alice began asserting herself even more. She dropped by frequently, often with bags of groceries or other things she thought we needed, and give unsolicited advice on everything. She'd rearrange the kitchen cupboards, comment on my wardrobe choices, and even rearrange our living room furniture while I was at work. When I mentioned this to Tom, he'd just laugh, saying, "You know how moms are." Months passed, and I felt increasingly uncomfortable in my own home. Then, one evening, I got news that would change everything. I was pregnant. I was overjoyed. I thought this would bring our family closer and that perhaps Alice's involvement would now have a purpose. But when we shared the news with her, her reaction was strange. Instead of excitement, she looked at me with a critical gaze and said, "Well, I hope you're ready for the responsibility. It's not just about you anymore." As my pregnancy progressed, Alice's helpfulness turned into control. She began coming over almost daily, reorganizing things, making lists of what a proper mother should do, and offering her expert advice on everything. She questioned what I ate, comment on my prenatal appointments, and make snide remarks about my choices. I began feeling like a guest in my own life. Things reached a breaking point one afternoon. I came home to find Alice going through my personal papers in our bedroom. When I confronted her, She calmly explained that she was just checking to make sure everything was organized for the baby. My privacy had been violated and I felt furious. I tried talking to Tom, but he brushed it off saying, "She just wants to help." I was heartbroken. The man I married was supposed to support me, but it felt like he was choosing his mother over me. I felt isolated and began questioning my entire relationship. One night, just as I was entering my third trimester, I came home from a long day at work. The house was dark, which was unusual because Tom was usually home by then. I tried the door, but it was locked. After knocking, Alice opened it, her expression cold and unwelcoming. "Emma," she said, "we need to talk." She led me into the living room, where Tom was sitting, looking down, avoiding my gaze. My heart pounded as I sat across from them, feeling a sense of dread. Alice looked at me with a steely expression and said, "We believe it's best if you transfer ownership of the house to Tom. It's for the security of the family, after all. You'll be focusing on the baby soon, and this way, Tom will be able to handle everything." I was stunned. "This is our home," I said, my voice shaking. "I've invested just as much as Tom has. This is supposed to be a partnership." But Alice was relentless. She looked at me with an icy gaze and said, "If you truly cared about this family, you'd do what's best for it. Holding onto the house in your name shows a lack of trust." She went on, implying that I was selfish for not prioritizing Tom's security. Tom remained silent, his eyes on the floor. I felt a sense of betrayal that I couldn't put into words. This was supposed to be the man I loved, the man that promised to be my partner. And yet, here he was, letting his mother push me around. I told them both that I needed time to think and went to bed, feeling alone and heartbroken. The next morning, things got even worse. As I was getting ready for work, Alice cornered me, again pressing the issue of the house. I firmly told her that I wouldn't be signing anything over and that we'd bought the house as partners. She glared at me, a look that sent a chill down my spine. "You're making a big mistake, Emma," she said, her voice low and dangerous. That night, I came home to find my belongings packed in boxes. Alice stood there, smugly informing me that Tom had agreed I should leave until I was ready to put the family first. I couldn't believe it. They were throwing me out of my own home, the place I'd worked so hard to build with Tom. I was devastated, but I knew I couldn't stay where I wasn't wanted. I spent the next few days staying with a close friend, trying to make sense of everything. I wanted to cry, but more than that, I felt anger building inside me. How had I let myself get so trapped? But as the initial shock wore off, I began to feel a new sense of clarity. I realized that I had to take control of my life. I wasn't going to let Alice or anyone else manipulate me. With the help of my friend Leah, who was also a lawyer, I started gathering evidence of Alice's behavior and Tom's complicity. I documented every instance of manipulation and harassment, determined to protect what was mine. Leah helped me file for divorce, and we prepared for the court battle that lay ahead. The day of the hearing, I walked into the courtroom with Leah by my side. Tom and Alice were there, both looking smug, as if they'd already won. But I was determined to fight for myself and my future. As Leah presented our case, detailing the emotional abuse and manipulation I'd endured, I watched the judge's expression shift from neutral to one of concern. When it was my turn to speak, I recounted everything I'd been through, describing how Alice had tried to control every aspect of my life, and how Tom had chosen his mother over me. I told the court that I was standing up not just for myself, but for every person who had ever been manipulated or controlled by someone else. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. I was awarded full ownership of the house and a significant portion of our shared assets. Tom and Alice were left stunned, their smug expressions replaced by shock and disbelief. As I walked out of the courtroom, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had taken back control of my life, and I knew I'd never let anyone make me feel powerless again. This experience had been painful, but it had also made me stronger. And as I looked ahead, I felt ready to face whatever challenges life might bring my way.